A fragment of vellum unearthed from a sealed tomb in Akhmim, Egypt in 1886 contains the Greek text of chapter 22 of the Book of Enoch. 4 hollow places inside a mountain in the west where the spirits of the dead assemble and wait. The Book of Enoch was removed from public reading by the Council of Laodicea in 364 CE, banned from the churches of the Mediterranean. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947 at Qumran, 11 separate Aramaic copies of Enoch surfaced, more copies than were recovered of most books that remained in the Hebrew canon. Enoch is shown a great high mountain of hard rock. Inside it are 4 hollow places, deep, wide, and very smooth. Raphael names the categories that fill them. 1 chamber already holds a bright spring of water. 1 holds the murdered who still cry out. None leave until the great judgment. In the next several minutes, you will see the exact divisions, the text records, the terms the translators flattened, and why this geography was set aside. If forbidden biblical history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what was removed from Scripture, but here's what makes this stranger. The passage sits inside the Book of the Watchers, chapters 1 through 36, the oldest major section of 1st Enoch. The Aramaic witness is 4Q205, part of the 4Q201 through 4Q212 family. Those fragments held at the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem preserve lines corresponding to chapter 22, including the Abel suit and the later separation formulas. Paleography places them in the late Hasmonean to early Herodian period, roughly the 1st century BCE. The only complete continuous text is the Ge'ez tradition of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, preserved in the manuscript collections at Axum and collated by Michael Knibb in his 1978 Oxford edition. The Greek witness is the Codex Panapolitanus, the Akhmim fragment found in 1886 and now in Cairo. It supplies the explicit detail of 3 dark hollows and 1 bright hollow with a fountain in its midst. Joseph Millick published the Aramaic material in the Books of Enoch in 1976 and restored the underlying pit vocabulary. George Nicholsburg, in the Hermeneia commentary of 2001, treated chapter 22 as the earliest detailed Jewish map of the intermediate state. James Vanderkam, working with Nicholsburg, placed the core of the chapter in the 3rd century BCE stratum of the Watchers. The Aramaic fragments of this section are older than any surviving New Testament manuscript. And this is where it gets disturbing. Apocalyptic literature deals in symbolic beasts, numbered angels, cosmic thrones. Chapter 22 does not. It gives a compass direction, a geological material, account of cavities and tactile qualities. Deep, wide, very smooth. It reads the way a field report reads, flat, sequential, specific, with no apparent awareness that what is being described should be impossible. The text begins with this, chapter 22, verses 1 and 2, in the Charles translation of 1912. And thence I went to another place, and he showed me in the west another great and high mountain and of hard rock. And there was in it 4 hollow places, deep and wide and very smooth. How smooth are the hollow places and deep and dark to look at. The Greek of the Akhmim fragment adds the visual contrast. 3 of them dark and 1 bright, with a fountain of water in its midst. The underlying Greek term is koilemata, hollow places, cavities formed by digging. The Aramaic form recovered by Millick is a noun from the root, meaning to dig or hollow out. The Ge'ez preserves the continuous reading of 4 interior cavities. These are not natural caves. The text insists on smoothness, depth, and width, as if the chambers were engineered. Parallel language for pits appears elsewhere in the Watchers when the text describes the prison of the angels, but the smoothness motif is distinctive here. The level of topographic inventory is wrong for visionary literature. Compass, rock, number, texture. It is the register of a site report. The Ethiopic and Greek witnesses differ on how many of the hollows are dark, yet both agree on the number 4 and on the western mountain of hard rock. The text begins with a place that can be located on a map and measured by the eye, but the text doesn't stop there. Chapter 22, verses 3 and 4. Raphael, one of the holy angels who was with Enoch, answers and says, These hollow places have been created for this very purpose, that the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein, yea, that all the souls of the children of men should assemble here. And these places have been made to receive them till the day of their judgment, and till their appointed period, till the great judgment comes upon them. The Greek phrase is pneumata ton psychon ton necron, spirits of the souls of the dead. The Ge'ez carries the same double formulation. The range of meaning is precise. Disembodied conscious agents still capable of speech and of legal suit. Not annihilated, not yet finally judged. Every human soul, no exceptions. The collection is universal and the confinement is geographic. One complex of chambers holds the entire human dead until a single future judicial event. There is no free floating, no immediate final destination. The anthropology is consistent with the rest of the Watchers, where spirits survive and remain accountable, yet the universal assembly inside one mountain is stated here with a flatness that leaves no room for later Christian pictures of immediate paradise or torment. The appointed period is long. The text says so. The spirits wait. What follows in chapter 22 is stranger still. Verse 9. And such a division has been made for the spirits of the righteous, in which there is the bright spring of water. The Greek is explicit eumipos. One bright hollow with a fountain hedeidos in its midst. The spring is inside the chamber. Living water illuminated already present. Reward is not postponed until the final day. It is already underway in the intermediate state. The righteous do not wait in neutral storage. The sensory marker is physical, light and water inside the mountain itself. Water imagery for life and refreshment appears elsewhere in Enoch, but only here is the spring located inside a post-mortem holding place, and reserved for one category of the dead. Nicholsburg notes that an earlier stage of the tradition may have described all the hollows as dark. The brightness and the fountain belong to the expanded form that differentiates the fates. The reading is stable in the complete Ge'ez and in the Greek. The righteous already drink. There is one more detail from the same passage that deserves attention. Chapter 22, verses 10 through 12. Raphael continues. A division has been made for sinners when they die and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed on them in their lifetime. Here their spirits shall be set apart in this great pain till the great day of judgment and punishment and torment of those who curse forever and retribution for their spirits. There he shall bind them forever. Parallel to that chamber stands another. The spirits of those who make their suit, who make disclosures concerning their destruction, when they were slain in the days of the sinners. The text is explicit. In verses 5 through 7, Enoch sees a dead man making suit, his voice going forth to heaven. Raphael identifies him. This is the spirit which went forth from Abel, whom his brother Cain slew, and he makes his suit against him, till his seed is destroyed from the face of the earth, and his seed is annihilated from amongst the seed of men. The legal language of suit is forensic. It is not metaphor. The murdered remain vocal. Their complaint reaches heaven and continues until the perpetrator's line is erased. Genesis records Abel's blood crying from the ground. Chapter 22 expands that cry into continuous post-mortem litigation inside one of the hollows. Two distinct negative chambers. One for ordinary unpunished sinners already experiencing great pain and destined for eternal binding. One for the violently wronged who are not resting but actively prosecuting. The categories are moral and circumstantial, not a simple binary of good and evil. The Ge'ez preserves the Abel episode intact. The Greek of the Akhmim fragment supports the same separation. The Aramaic scraps in 4Q205 confirm the vocabulary of spirits in suit. And then comes the part that most accounts leave out. Chapter 22, verse 13. Such has been made for the spirits of men who were not righteous but sinners, who were complete in transgression, and of the transgressors they shall be companions. But their spirits shall not be slain in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from thence. Read that again. Not slain on the day of judgment, nor raised from thence. A residual category. Permanent, no further judicial killing, no resurrection. Simply left inside the hollow. The double negative is stable across the complete Geas and the Greek. Nickelsburg notes the possibility that this fourth fate is a refinement of an earlier three-division scheme, yet the wording itself is not disputed. This is the detail most secondary summaries flatten into ordinary hell. The text does not say that. It creates a fate that is neither temporary holding, nor final annihilation, nor final reward. Permanent, residual confinement without further process. The term complete in transgression marks the boundary. The exclusion formula seals it. The part that shouldn't be possible is this. The text of chapter 22 describes 4 engineered hollows inside a western mountain that already sort the dead by righteousness, unavenged blood, ordinary unjudged sin, and complete transgression with sensory markers of light, water, and pain operating before the final day. The modern scholarly record, articulated most fully by George Nickelsburg in the Hermeneia commentary of 2001, establishes that this chapter in its expanded form is one of the 2 earliest extant Jewish testimonies to post-mortem judgment and the first detailed geography of differentiated holding places. The intermediate state is already the locus of recompense prior to the Great Judgment. Second Temple Judaism possessed a concrete, compartmentalized map of the dead centuries before the New Testament and long before later Christian elaborations of limbo, purgatory, or graded hells. The text describes 4 chambers with provisional reward and pain already inside them. The scholarly consensus places that description among the earliest detailed Jewish articulations of the same conceptual territory, side by side. No claim is made that the ancient writer knew future doctrine. The correspondence is historical and conceptual only. Here's what the translators left out. The standard English rendering in Charles 1912 reads, 4 hollow places deep and wide and very smooth. How smooth are the hollow places and deep and dark to look at. Behind it stands the Greek koilemata, with the akmim fragments explicit 3 dark and 1 bright plus fountain. The Aramaic form restored by Milik is a noun from the root to dig or hollow out. The gaze carries the continuous 4-cavity reading. What the common English flattens is the engineered character of the cavities, and the immediate visual contrast of darkness against brightness and water. The difference turns a vague underworld into a structured installation with sensory markers already assigned. But what the standard translation hides is this. Charles on the final category. Their spirits shall not be slain in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from thence. The double negative is present in the complete witnesses. What the English and most popular summaries collapse is the permanent residual status, neither further judicial death nor resurrection. The difference removes an entire fate from view and replaces it with ordinary hell language the text itself does not use. The suppression starts at the Council of Laodicea in 364 CE. Canon 59 restricts public reading in the churches to the canonical books of the Old and New Testaments. Uncanonical books are excluded from liturgical use. Jerome, in De Viris Illustribus, notes that many rejected the Epistle of Jude precisely because it quotes the apocryphal Book of Enoch. Augustine, in City of God, Book 15, Chapter 23, acknowledges that Enoch left writings on the authority of Jude, yet argues those writings have no place in the canon preserved by the Hebrew people because of their antiquity and the impossibility of verifying genuine transmission. Tertullian had defended Enoch's authenticity. Origen remained ambivalent. The dispute was internal. Outside the reach of those Mediterranean councils, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church retained the book in its canon without interruption. In 1773, James Bruce brought 3 Geas manuscripts to Europe. Richard Lawrence published the first English translation in 1821. R. H. Charles produced the critical edition and translation that became the Western standard in 1906. The irony is exact. Jude chapter 1 verses 14 and 15 quotes 1 Enoch chapter 1, verse 9 almost verbatim as the prophetic speech of Enoch, the 7th from Adam. The New Testament itself cites the book that the later councils removed from public reading. Now here's where it gets active. Full photographic and critical publication of the smaller 4Q205 fragments of chapter 22 remained partial for decades after the Cave 4 discoveries. Access to certain Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscript collections containing the continuous text of the chapter has been governed by conservation protocols and ecclesiastical stewardship. The ordinary reasons or conservation priorities, the sheer volume of Cave 4 material assigned to a small editorial team, and the protective policies of the Ethiopian Church regarding liturgical manuscripts. Those ordinary reasons produce the same practical effect as deliberate restriction. The densest continuous witness and the earliest Aramaic scraps of this chapter reached full scholarly and public circulation only slowly. Now let me be clear. I am not saying that a literal mountain in the west contains 4 physical chambers currently holding the dead, or that 1 Enoch chapter 22 is a navigational chart to the underworld. But what the text describes when read carefully is 4 distinct holding places, named categories of spirit assigned to each, and provisional reward and pain already operating inside those places before the final judgment. The manuscripts attest it. The scholars who have published the fragments and the critical editions confirm the wording. What we have to confront is that the earliest extended Jewish map of the intermediate state is not a vague Sheol, but a fourfold geography of separation, already operative, still waiting for a single future judicial day. And that this map was quoted by a New Testament writer, and then excluded from the reading list of the churches that kept that writer. The Aramaic fragments remain catalogued in Jerusalem. The Greek leaf from Akhmim remains in Cairo. The Ge'ez manuscripts remain in Ethiopian collections. The text of chapter 22 has not changed. The 4 hollow places are still described exactly as they were. The chambers are still closed, the judgment is still appointed.